How do the most innocent cats play so dirty? I'll show you how I use Purrely to break through the Duelist Cup, and what changes I've made to fight the meta. It all starts with dirty engines. So it's actually been quite a while since Purrely has really made an appearance. Despite the power creep, these cats are still quite the menace. In fact, ever since Purrely Delicious Memory got released from the ban list, these cats got a lot more consistent, and that means more ways to get to our scariest fluffball, Purrely Noir. Although Noir is a powerful tower that can spin back cards to the deck, this cat isn't unstoppable. We aren't playing Lunalight after all. With how efficient meta decks are now at gaining resources, they are usually able to find some way to out Noir. So you might think, how do our innocent cats stand a chance against all the magical dragons and police dogs everywhere? Well, sometimes they just need a little help. With Fiend Smith. Just kidding. Get out of here. Our cats are getting help from Radiant Typhoon. Now, I'm not talking about the entirety of Radiant Typhoon, as we don't want to get locked into wind monsters. But a small package does help mitigate some of Purrely's downsides. Our Purrelys rely on their memory spells to evolve into their different evolutions, but these memories need to discard cards to gain their full effects. So the question is, what do we discard? It sucks to discard something useful like staples, right? And that's where Radiant Typhoon comes in. Because Radiant Typhoon lets us grab Mystical Space Typhoon back from the deck or grave, it's a reusable discard fodder. Now you might think, that's nice and all, but how else does Radiant Typhoon help our cats fight the meta? Because Purrely's main weakness is stopping their evolutions, we need a way to insulate their setup. With some playtesting, I found that Radiant Typhoon Swen, Elden, and Chant to be pretty helpful. Any of these lets us go into Radiant Typhoon Vararoon and Mandate, which helps Purrely negate and draw cards. Usually our opponent will try to stop this from happening. But even if they do, that's a win for our cats, if that means that they can evolve. Now, Radiant Typhoon doesn't work with every deck since they need tons of quick play spells. But now that we can run our 12 Purrely memories, this works out perfectly. So if you have Radiant Typhoon lying around, you might find out how dirty storming cats can be. But this alone isn't enough for Purrelys to fight the meta. Our cats need dirty staples. It goes without saying that Purrely's non-engine is just as important for them to play dirty. So I've made some changes. Something I did for our cats is swapping out Ash Blossom for more Molcharmies. And I know you might be thinking, what if our opponent hits us with their Molcharmies now? Normally, I do like keeping Ash Blossom just for that reason. But after some playtesting, I found that getting hit with Molcharmies isn't the end of the world for our cats. Because our Purrely memories are quick play spells, if our opponent does shotgun a Molcharmy on our turn, we can always chain a Purrely memory to them. Plus Purrelys can still do their setup with just one extra deck summon. But you might think, wouldn't more Molcharmies also mean opening with more bricks? That is also true, but even when going first, our Molcharmies become discard fodder for all the Purrely memories that we have. I found that not only does running more Molcharmies make going second a lot more comfortable, but it also doesn't make going first feel too bricky for Purrely. And especially against the meta, this means our cats have a higher chance to evolve. Oh, and if you have space, Triple Tactics Talent and Forbidden Droplet work wonders with our cats. But I only run one copy of each to keep the deck size down. So if you haven't tried changing up your cat's non-engine recently, you might want to give more Molcharmies a try. But there's one last thing Purrely needs to play dirty, and that would be dirty closeouts. One of the things I noticed about fighting the meta is how efficient it is at recovering. So that means closing out games is more crucial than ever. Now how does Purrely do this? A common way our cats close out games is through Purrely Happiness. This medium-sized cat loves attacking multiple times to deal tons of damage. And most of the time, it's enough to OTK. But then what's the problem? Well, pulling this off does require some level of setup. This only really works if Purrely Happiness can land her first attack. But sometimes, our opponent's field just doesn't let us do that. So if the goal is to close out games, how can our Purrely do this? And it might surprise you. After some playtesting, I decided to revisit the one Purrely who is often neglected. It's the other big cat, Purrely Happiness. She's actually the evolution of Purrely Happiness. On the surface, Purrely Happiness is often neglected because she's seen as inferior to Purrely Noir. While that is generally true, I still decided to give Purrely Happiness a chance to shine. And I'm happy I did. So this big cat is meant to do one job and one job only, finishing games. When Purrely Happiness has Purrely Happy or Delicious Memories as materials, the amount of damage she can do in one turn is huge. And I mean usually over 8,000 life points kind of huge. Plus, she comes with a blanket monster negate to help go for the OTK. Now, this doesn't mean that Purrely Happiness is always the solution. In the majority of cases, bringing out Nora for the interruptions or Purrely Happiness for the OTK is the safer play. But I found that Purrely Happiness has come up enough for me to run her at 1 copy. So if you want another way for your cast to play dirty, maybe you'll want to give Purrely Happiness another chance. You might find that she's worth the slot in your extra deck. And that was Purrely in the Duelist Cup. These adorable cats got me all the way to Duelist level max fairly quickly. So if you're looking to play dirty with Purrely, I highly recommend it. But if you're looking to perhaps play another fun deck, maybe you'll want to check out my other video where I fight the meta of Mimighoul. It's super awesome. Anyways, thanks for stopping by. Bye bye!